Good. Now we are learning Parashat Bahar. It's a double para portion this week. Bahar u'bechukotai. Bahar u'bechukotai. And there are mitzvot in this week's Torah portion. Bahar u'bechukotai. Most of the mitzvot are only relevant in the time when there was the Holy Temple. But some of them not. And we'll go through some of the mitzvahs. For instance, one of the commandments is the mitzvah of Shemitah. That's relevant. Now you have to work for 6 years. In the 7th year, the land, this is only in Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, but it still is now. In the 7th year, the land has to rest. So let's just go through quickly some of the sentences, and then we'll explain some of the sentences. Also, we'll explain some of the laws. God spoke to Moses at Mount Sinai, Lemor, to say over to the Jewish people. A lot of nice explanations over here. What did God say on Mount Sinai? He said all the commandments, right? On Mount Sinai. We got all the commandments on Mount Sinai, right? No. What does it say over here? God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai and he said, Lemor, speak to the Jewish people and say to them that when you come to the land that I give them, that the earth should rest for should rest a Shabbat for God. Like we learned in the Likutei Torah in the morning, it seems what it's saying here is that the first year when the Jews arrive in Israel, after they wandered 40 years in the desert, that they should let the land rest. But that's not what it means. What does it mean? It means that you should do this mitzvah when you come to the land of Israel. You should begin to do this mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? Like the 6 years you should plant your field. 6 years you should prune your vineyard, and gather up all of your produce. But on the 7th year, it's a rest day of God. Who rests? The land rests. In other words, the farmers don't work on the land. The farmers can do whatever they want to. They can do all the work that you do on Shabbat. They light fires, they can cook, they can sew, they can write letters, they can build buildings, well, to a certain degree, we'll see. But they have to let the land rest. Can't do anything on the land. Your fields you should not plant, your vineyards you should not work on. Even what grows you shouldn't harvest in a regular way. Your grapes you should not also gather up. Harvest don't gather up. It's a Shabbat for the earth. It should be Shabbat for the earth, and it's all for you to eat. Everything is there just to pick off and eat from the ground. You and your servants and your maid servants and your your schircha for the slaves that work with you, servants, the people that work with you, and those who dwell with you, that dwell with you, live there with you. With every people, your animals in the field, everything is just supposed to be free for everyone to eat. That's the Shemitah year. And then you should count 7 years, 7 times. And then after that, you've counted 49 years. So every 7-year period, you're supposed to have what's called a Shemitah, sabbatical. And then every 7 sabbaticals, in other words, after 49 years, then the 50th year becomes what's called the Yovel. What do? You sound the shofar. For this, we learned, by the way, that you sound the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. You sound the shofar on the 7th month, that's the month of Tishrei, and the 10th day on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur. The shofar blast should be heard through all of your land. And this 50th year is also holy. So in that year, in other words, the 49th year, you'll have a Shemitah year. And immediately afterwards, you have a Yovel year, which the laws are the same as the Shemitah year, but there's a couple of added laws. All the slaves go free. You'll see. Krosem Duror, it's a year of freedom for the earth. It's a Yovel for everyone. And each should go back to his original land and each person to his family. So in other words, this is the year if you bought land, this eventually changed in Israel, but if you bought land in Israel, so you only bought it for a certain amount of time. This did not last. When you bought land, the land only lasts for a certain amount of time. You had to give it back. So in other words, you bought land for a certain amount of purpose, and then eventually it would go back to the family where you bought it from, especially because Israel was divided up according to tribes. So that was every the 50th year. And also slaves, it was permissible to have what's called an Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave that either he sold himself because he was so poor, or he sold himself because the court sold him. He stole money and he couldn't pay it back, so the court can sell him. And then they can only really sell him for this amount of time, for 7 years. But if he decides on his own he wants to stay by his master, that's the one who sold himself. One who sells himself, he can decide on his own he wants to stay by his master, so he can say, I want to stay until the Jubilee year. In the Jubilee year, he goes home, goes back. A nirtza, okay, well, there's a Jew that sells himself and he decides that he wants to stay by his master, so the master can put a hole through his ear, takes him to the door and puts a hole through his ear to the door, and he says, now you're my servant forever. Forever means until the Jubilee year, in this case. Yovel, it's the Jubilee year. It's the 50th year. And don't plant, don't harvest, don't gather up what you've gathered, because the Yovel, it's holy to you. Eat its produce. And in this Yovel year, everyone should go back to his original land. Everybody gets his land back. We're going to look at these laws in a second. Okay, then we have another law here. This is today's what's called chitas. This is what we learned today with Rashi. We didn't learn the Rashi. Tomorrow we'll start off with a law which is called don't cheat. Don't cheat each other. When you do business, don't cheat one another. Okay, so we learned here a few laws today. Let's just have a brief look. We're going to have this cheating law. There we go. Here we have this book again, this book which is called Mitzvot Hashem, the commandments of God. Very useful, practical book. It lists all of the commandments in the Torah, 613 of them, according to the Rambam. There's different opinions with small differences on what are considered to be the commandments from the Torah and which are not, and how exactly you count them. But anyway, the Rambam, the Maimonides, he's the most accepted, and it goes according to the portions of the week. So in this week's Torah portion, Bahar, we have altogether 24 commandments, 7 positive commandments, 7 things you must do, and 17 prohibitions. And next week's Torah portion, which we're going to get to that, is Parshat Bechukotai. And there we have a lot less commandments, but there's a lot of curses. All these curses next week. Learn about that. 49 terrible, terrible curses awaiting the Jews if they don't do what God says, which we see that there's altogether 12 commandments there next week, in next Torah portion. Okay, let's go back. Go back to our or let's start from the beginning again. In the book Bahar, there are 7 positive commandments and 17 negative commandments. Here we have 4 commandments which deal with the Shemitah, the 7th year. Number 1, a negative commandment: don't work on the land of Israel, planting and harvesting and gathering. And you can't prepare the land either. You can't just plow. Let's plow the land. We won't plant anything, right? Can't do that. Let's get rid of the stones. We'll just clear the land, and we'll just have it all ready there for the next year. But we don't do any planting. Is that okay? No, can't do that. You can't work on the land. A negative commandment: you cannot work. You cannot. Okay, first negative commandment: don't work on the land. Don't plant it. Next commandment: don't work on the trees, on the Shemitah, grapes, etc. Next negative commandment: don't gather up your things that grow naturally in this year. You're allowed to eat directly from the field, but you're not supposed to take it and hoard it in your house. Negative commandment: don't gather up the fruits from the trees on this. This is all part of a positive commandment that you have to. If you transgress one of these, then you are, first of all, you negate a positive command, which we're going to get to, and you transgress on a negative commandment, and the punishment is lashes. Now he says he wants to explain exactly what all of these are, but we'll go for let's just very briefly. What does it say? It says, now I want to explain all these 4 negative commandments that he has over here that we just finished. Zmira usually means like pruning. This means improving the land. So all these 3 are really sort of basically the same thing. Why are they all different? Why are there 3 different commandments? Because you're not just saying don't work on the land or any of the plants. Because you're only really lashes are only applied if a person plants, or he prunes, or he cuts, or he gathers. But on the other things, for instance, a person, let's say, he plows up his field, he removes stones from the field, he fertilizes the field. Let's say he, with trees, he doesn't prune the tree, he plants a tree. Trees take a long time, huh? So he plants a tree. Or he takes a tree that already exists, like grapes, vines, and he takes the top of the vine and sticks it in the ground. It grows up brand new. Or what if a person does, let's say, he puts branches of one tree into another tree? Something like this thing. So these things are not punishable by the Torah, only from the rabbis. What if a person gathers up the produce of the field on the 7th year? Didn't plant anything. He's just gathering up what grows on its own from the previous years. So if he does this, what was there from before, from the produce or from the trees, on this it says Sefiach Ketzir Chalot Tektzor. It says that what grows up Sefiach is what grows up automatically from your ground. You're not allowed to harvest it, and if you do in the regular way, like in other words, you harvest your whole entire field, and then you make like piles of the produce in your field, then it's also punishable. But if a person does a little, so what are you supposed to do? I mean, you're supposed to eat from the field. You can harvest little by little, and then you can eat. But that's permissible. All right. Next commandment. Let's do this. There we go. Positive commandment. A positive commandment on the court, the high court in Jerusalem. that they have to count 7 years 7 times. And 7 years 7 times. That's one commandment. Next commandment, positive commandment, to sound the shofar on Yom Kippur in the 50th year. Like it says, on the 50th year, you should shine the shofar. This commandment does not exist now. The Yovel only exists in the time when there was the Holy Temple. Here we'll see. He says he's going to say it. Here it says, okay. It says, this is only done though in the time of the temple. This is, if you have to look in his later on, and he explains which commandments are not done nowadays because of the temple. Another positive commandment, the court, the high court, in addition to sounding the shofar, but they have to officially sanctify the 50th year. Like it says, ukadashtem, just like it says that the high court has to determine when is the beginning of each month. They have to declare it. So that's what it means. As soon as Rosh Hashanah comes on the Yovel year, on the 50th year, so the Beis Din, and this is 10 days before they sound the shofar, they officially announce and say, this is the 50th year. The fields do not go back to their owners yet, and the servants don't go back until they sound the shofar. But first of all, they announce this is going to be the 50th year. In 10 days, all the fields are going to go back. Here are another 3 commandments regarding the Jubilee year, the Yovel. The same as the Shemitah. On this 49th year and 50th year, there's 2 years in a row that all the farmers do not work on their land at all. They don't fertilize it, they don't plant it, they don't prepare it. A negative commandment, they're not allowed to work on the land on the Jubilee year. Another negative commandment, they're not allowed to gather, same thing as in the Jubilee year, just as they did the year before, which was the 7th year. A negative commandment that they cannot gather up fruits of the trees, etc. A positive commandment. Okay, that we finish now with Shemitah and with Yovel, with the Jubilee year. Now we have a positive commandment that the judges have to decide cases of business. Like it says, if a person sells something to his friend and there's any sort of an altercation, they have to go to the court, and the court is commanded to listen to the case and decide it. So not only are they doing something which is logical, and every normal society has laws, but here we have this is a commandment, negative commandment, not to fool one another in business. Like it says, if you do business, don't fool one another. That's what we're going to get to tomorrow. Let's go back now to these are the commandments, the few of the commandments that we learned in this week's Torah portion. How many were there? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. How many have we discussed from the 24 of this week's Torah portion? Of the first section of this Torah portion. We've done 4 so far. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 of the 24 we've learned today. Let's go back to our Torah portion. Let's see something interesting, right? Parshat Bahar. Hashem spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, and he said, and what did he say? One commandment. He says the commandment of 6 years, 6 days, 6 years you should work, and 1 year you should not work. It's the sabbatical year. That's it. That's all the commandments he said on Mount Sinai. What are you talking about? Of course, that's not so. We know for sure, without any doubt, clearly that God gave the 10 commandments on Mount Sinai. And that for sure he gave that at Mount Sinai. And the fact is, we know that Moses went up on Mount Sinai for 40 days. So he got much more than the 10 commandments up there. And it's true that he broke the first 10 commandments, but the Jewish people have heard the 10 commandments, and they already knew what they were. And then he went back up on Mount Sinai for 40 days. Why? What did he do up there? So God gave him the whole Torah on Mount Sinai. So he just gave him this commandment of Shemitah. Not only that, there's another problem. What's the other problem? If you remember, this whole book of Vayikra, of Leviticus, this was spoken to Moses, was called from the Ohel Moed, from the tent of meeting, from the tabernacle. Here, remember this? Let's go back. Let's see if we can find this. Here we go. Is this good? Try it. We'll try it. Here. Vayikra, just to Vayikra. It was going back to the beginning of the book of Leviticus. Oh, this is just Rashi. I see. Okay. I see. We have to go back to here. I got stuck here. Okay. This is just Vayikra alone. Oh, there it is. There we go. Parsha Vayikra. Vayikra al Moshe. That God called to Moshe. V'yedaber Hashem alav, and God spoke to him. Me'oel Moed, from the tent of meeting. So what's this thing about Sinai? Why did it say over here that he called the commandments on Sinai? That's what he didn't get them all on Sinai. He got them, right? The 10 commandments he got on Sinai, but after God told him to build a tabernacle, so then he spoke to him from the tabernacle, gave him more commandments. On the other hand, what did Moses do in the 40 days that he was up on Mount Sinai? So maybe we can explain this a little bit. Let's make this a little bit clearer here. Here we go. Excuse me. 1 minute. We have to go back to this thing here. Back to the beginning. There we go. Good. So Rashi says, Ma'ayin Shemitah Etzel Har Sinai, isn't all the commandments were said on Mount Sinai. But what? Just like that Shemitah was said with all of its generalities and its details. But we just finished saying, don't plow and don't this, all the details. It could have just said, keep Shemitah. Like, for instance, in the 10 Commandments, what does it say? It says, don't kill. It doesn't explain what it means, don't kill. Just says it in a very general way. The most general of all, right? One of the 10 Commandments, the fourth of the 10 Commandments is keep Shabbat, right? Fourth of the 10 Commandments is keep Shabbat. I created the world in the 6 days and 7 days. So it says keep the Shabbat. What are you supposed to do on the Shabbat? Doesn't say. It says you shouldn't leave your house or something. Right? There's so many laws on Shabbat. It doesn't say any of the details. So he says that's what you might think, but the fact is not so. Just like on Mount Sinai, when it said the laws of Shemitah and in general, the seventh year and all of its details in general, and then afterwards it gave all the details, just like I told you, right? Just like we just saw you're not supposed to prune and you're not supposed to plant and that's what this. So the same thing, all the commandments were said with their generality and their details were all said on Mount Sinai. Okay. Interestingly enough, though, he doesn't say Behar Sinai. It just says Sinai. Now, there were two things that were called Sinai. Remember, we learned this also in the Sikh of the Rebbe that we're learning in the morning. There was Mount Sinai, but then there was the desert of Sinai. Mount Sinai, they were there. I mean, first of all, Moses was just there for 120 days on Mount Sinai. But the whole rest of the time, all the whole 40 years, they were in the desert of Mount Sinai. They were the desert of Sinai, I'm sorry. So the desert of Sinai, that's when they came in on the first day of Sivan. They came the first day. And on the sixth day, they went up to the mountain and they received the Torah. And good, they received the Torah on 50 days later, and then they broke the tablets, and then another 50 days, and another 50 days. Then Moses went up, it was another 40 days on Mount Sinai, another 40 days. But the fact of the matter is that they were on Mount Sinai for a fairly short amount of time, right? They were on Mount Sinai for 4 months. And all the rest of the time they were in Sinai. So that explains what he says. This is what he's talking about, that all the details were on Sinai. In other words, either from Mount Sinai or in the desert of Sinai, but not right before the Jews went into Israel. Before the Jews went into Israel, they were a place called Arvot Moav. And that's where Moses repeated the Torah. He gave him the book of Deuteronomy, Devorim. And therefore, and there's a lot of new commandments in Devorim, a lot of new commandments. So that's what he's coming to tell you. Don't think there are new commandments. It's not so. All the commandments that were given over on Mount Sinai are just a repetition of what was said in the time that they were in the desert. And some of them, they weren't repeated. They're said for the first time. You're saying Shema Yisrael, for instance. He says, no, really all of them were said in the time they were in the desert. This is what is written in Torah Kohanim. Torah Kohanim is a midrash of, it's called Sifra. Venerally, and it seems to me that this is the explanation. Says the Rashi, I think this is correct. Lefi Shalom Atzina, because we don't find this law about Shmitat Karkaot, about not working on your land, in Arvot Moab, in the book of Deuteronomy, in Mishnah Torah. Book of Deuteronomy is called Mishnah Torah. Mishnah Torah means repeated. I guess that's why Deuteronomy also means duo, means the second, some sort of Greek word or something. So we found from its generality and all the details also were said from Sinai. In other words, either at Mount Sinai or in the desert of Sinai, from the Ohel Moed, like I just finished saying. So that's what it's coming to tell you, that all that God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai also contained it in all the details, and then also what he said in Sinai also contained all the details. So the whole Torah with all of its details was said to Moses. And it even says that when Moses was on Mount Sinai, that God showed him even all the laws that all the rabbis were going to say in all the future generations. Because it was above time. God spoke to Moses, right? It wasn't some the Wizard of Oz or something we're talking about. We're talking about the creator of the whole universe. He creates all time. So this is not any sort of a normal experience or spiritual experience. We're talking about ultra super real experience, real reality. And God really told Moses the whole secret of the creation of the Jewish people, of the Torah. So he says, Bihar Sinai. I'm sorry, I wanted to do the Ohr HaChaim. All right, let's just do the Baal HaTurim for 1 second. Do you remember last week, how did we finish last week's Torah portion? On a really sort of a sour note. You remember last week what we learned? This just the Shabbat. We learned the tragic story of the young man that cursed, that spoke negatively about the Creator. One of the 10 commandments, right? Third of the 10 commandments. You're not allowed to blaspheme. Can't take God's name in vain. God is not, something a creator, one of the characters of the Bible. God is the creator of all being. So you can't treat it and disparagingly, lightly, and for sure negatively. And that's what Rashi explains who this fellow was, that he came from. His wife was a very sort of a loose lady, and she made trouble before. She was Shlomit Bas Dibri. Okay, so that talks about this. They took the one who cursed in the name of God, and they killed him. That's how last week's Torah portion ends. Terrible ending, right? Terrible ending. So it says, and all of a sudden here we're talking about Mount Sinai, that the laws were given in Mount Sinai. That here's an example. Everything was given, like the law of the Shemitah. So it says, Samach Makalel, the Baal haTuvrim, the law of the Makalel, of the one who cursed, was put next to Mount Sinai to tell you that at Mount Sinai, they heard the third of the 10 commandments, don't take God's name in vain. And it said that the whole world shook. And this person, at the end of last week's Torah portion, he also heard. I mean, he was at Mount Sinai, this person that did the cursing. And he wasn't careful. Also, another reason, it says that in Kedushin, in the Talmud, it says that there's God's name of 4 letters, right? Yud and then K. And then Chachamim mosrim oto, and the wise man gave it to their pupils. This is a special way to say God's name. Only one time in 7 years. It says that the secret is given over once in 7 years. Therefore, it is mentioned over here, the Shemitah, which is once in 7 years. That's what it has in common. Okay. Let's look at the Ohr HaChaim. The Ohr HaChaim, the holy Ohr HaChaim, Chaim ben Atar. Mount Sinai, we have to understand, why is Mount Sinai mentioned at all in this commandment? Right? What does this mean? All the commandments were given on Mount Sinai. What does it say that God said on Mount Sinai? The commandment of Shemitah. Okay, good. That's true. He did say Shemitah, Shemitah, the 7th year. That certainly is true. But why pick this one out? I mean, none of the other, all the commandments were from Mount Sinai. Why doesn't it say by them that God gave the commandment, right? God gave this commandment on Mount Sinai. Keep the day of Sabbath. Didn't say it. Even though that rabbis say in the Torah Kohanim, again in the Midrash, Ki lilamed bo shekol mitzvos, this comes to teach us that all the commandments were said, general and detailed. They're all said in Mount Sinai. But nevertheless, still, we can ask a question. Why doesn't it say this, that it was given on Mount Sinai, only by this mitzvah? Only on this commandment with the Shemitah, is it says that God gave it on Mount Sinai. Maybe we can say like this, right? Not the earlier mitzvot or the later mitzvot. Ulai, maybe we can say, L'tzad shehizkir matanat oret, because here God said the land which I gave you. As diktuk, therefore it says on Mount Sinai. Why? To tell you that how did the Jews get the land of Israel? Well, God promised it to Abraham, didn't he? And he promised it to Abraham, promised it to Yitzchak, promised it to Yaakov, promised it to Moses. He said, I'm going to give you the land. So that's all true. But the real fact of the matter is why, what was the final and major reason God gave the land to the Jews, Israel? Because of what happened in Mount Sinai. Pirush, Masha Kibalno, what they received on Mount Sinai, the Torah. This is the completion of the gift. That in order that the Jews would keep the Torah, God gave the land. And that's if you're a religious Jew, you say every day Shema prayer. Shema. You say the second paragraph. It says, if you don't do what I say, then I'll evict you from the land. Right? If you do what I say, then the land will be plentiful, and the land will be produced. And if not, then I'll evict you from the land. That's what it says there. And we see that it happened twice. So, but God doesn't do those things anymore. He saw that it didn't work. I mean, but the first and the second temple were destroyed, and the Jews were evicted from the land because they didn't do what God wanted. So that's what he says. The real cement thing that really finalizes the promises that God made to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses is when the Jews do the commandments in the land of Israel. And that's one of the reasons that says the Mashiach is going to bring all the Jews back to Israel, or to Israel. I mean, back to, because that's where the Jews were supposed to be. But take the Jews back to Israel, because the Mashiach is going to encourage everyone, all the Jews, to really want to serve the creator of the universe. And the only way you can do that is through the commandments that were given on Sinai. Oh, another one. Alpi Maimara Gemara, what it says in the Gemara and the Torah in the Talmud, Avodah Zorah. And Maimonides also says in the laws of Zechia, the laws of how you can purchase something or how you can acquire things. This is what he says. Asur latet, it is forbidden to give a non-Jew a free gift. You're not supposed to give, al techanem. You're not supposed to give a non-Jew a free gift. If you give him a present, he'll give you something back or get in a favor. That's different. If you owe him, of course, you have to pay it. They're not allowed to cheat. But nevertheless, you're not supposed to give them a free gift for absolutely nothing. Adkan, that's what he says. In Canaan. So the Jewish people, before they received the Torah, their law practically was, in many aspects, was like one of the nations. Right? They didn't have this prohibition to give away free gifts. Of course, they were the Jewish people. They were slaves in Egypt. Everybody knew who the Jewish people were. And the Jewish people got out of Egypt as the Jewish people. But a lot of the laws did not apply to them because it hadn't been given yet. And after they received the Torah, Achar Kabbalat the Torah, Yochal Liten Lahem. Therefore, you might think that the land now belongs to the Jews. Now we can give it away. You might think. Therefore, it says, Bahar Sinai, Shebezeh Yochal Omor. We can say, Asher ani noten lechem. That God says, I'm giving this to you. I'm giving the land to you. This is my gift that I'm giving it to you. You cannot give it away. Can't give the land away. Why can he say that I am giving it to you? Because simply it means God is the one that gives. And no one else can make a mistake in it. So it comes out, okay, so now we have a question. It's forbidden, right, to give a free gift to a non-Jew. So in this aspect, before the Torah was given, the Jewish people they haven't got this commandment of not to give it away. But God does have the commandment. And the Jewish people are sort of like non-Jews. I mean, they don't have this commandment. So you might think that God could not give them the Torah because it's a free gift. It's a free gift. You're not supposed to give free gifts. God has to do, says God also does what it says in the Torah. It says, no, when God says, don't worry, I can do it. God says, I'm giving you the Torah, and I'm also giving you the land of Israel. Now it applies this law. You're not allowed to give it away for free. Therefore, it says, when you come to the land and you plant it. So it comes out that Parsha as Kadoshim when it says that when you come to the land of Israel and you plant things, v'lo tzrich lomar bosim. It doesn't have to say a sign, the land of Israel that I am giving to you. But intention is lamash katabnu, what it means over here, that God says, I can give you the land, I can give you the free gift, but you can't give it away to anyone. From now, you can understand why God chose to give his sons, Lilmod Binyan Avzet, to give the Jewish people this general principle. L'kol Torah, Parsha Zu, and not Parsha Acheres. Why is it that this portion, which talks about giving the land of Israel, right? Har Sinai, it says, speak to the Jews and say to them, when you come to the land of Israel that I gave to you, I am giving to you. He's saying, I am giving it to you now, along with the Torah. The Torah says you're not allowed to give a free gift away to a non-Jew. The same thing as you can't give this away. Can't give the land away to anyone. So in one way, that belongs to the Jews, but another way, they're not allowed to give it away. The Rebbe screamed about this very, 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 for a very long time, about the whole even thought of giving away land for the sake of peace or whatever. First of all, it doesn't make any peace, and second of all, just the insanity of it, and the whole, it goes against the whole essence of what the Jews are. Right? The world is so big, and God gave this one little portion to the Jews, and He said, "This you cannot give away. You're not allowed to give away." But nevertheless, they're trying as hard as they can to do. Miraculously, the Rebbe said, it's a tremendous miracle that we see every day, constantly, that miraculously, for some unexplainable reason, our enemies don't want to take the land. We're trying to give it away from them. One of the prime ministers of Israel, he got around it by just giving it to them, not even asking them if they want to receive it or not. He just destroyed everything, just gave them the whole. I was, okay, what are we going to do? God will certainly bring Mashiach and fix the whole thing up now. Since we gave it to them, there's only been war and trouble. And from now on, there's only going to be peace and happiness. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, see everybody, I hope, tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning. We'll continue the mimer and the Sikha of the Rebbe. Shalom uvracha.